I'm hiking through the dense forests of Michigan. There's the chatter of birds, the little nyucks of those squirrels, the rustle of leaves in the wind. It smells like dirt everywhere. There's the distant hum of industrial freezers. And these pine trees are just beautiful. Look at this guy. Oh, it's beautiful. It's so little. But all these are actually pine trees. The bottoms, the lower branches, as they're done getting sun, fall off and die because the tree doesn't need them anymore. But I'm out here now, escaping the political. And it feels good. My presidential race lasts 3 years? I've been talking about who's going to be president for 3 years, and I'm done. I'm tired. We're all ready for it to be over. And here I am, escaping it all. Michigan is my home state, and camping is a big deal, because most of our land is just not uncharted, but replanted forests. And it's beautiful and fantastic, and there's a lot of camping enthusiasts, and I'm a bit of a camping enthusiast. I don't have a lot of gear, but I love camping. And I know a bunch of people that just camp. There are numerous 2-track paths all over our forest where people have gone through and plowed with jeeps and trucks. And mudding is a real big thing, where after it rains, those 2-track trails get really muddy, and people go out with jeeps, and everyone can not everyone, but a lot of people can just tow themselves and have experience towing each other's cars out of ditches and out of mud spots. I've come across a spot I can't walk through. But but you see, it's really easy to go camping. Even without reserving a spot at a national or local campsite, you can just drive down a couple of back streets until you find a 2-track into a large, mostly untamed bit of wild. And you can just camp. And as long as you clean up after yourself, no one will know you're there. There are numerous rivers and creeks where you can get water. Camping equipment isn't that expensive, and it can be a lot of fun. And I've heard stories of romantic getaways of couples where they just start camping and are naked for the weekend in the middle of the woods and don't see another person and just, have a ball. I completely understand why people want to avoid or escape the political. I get it. I'm not going to talk about a lot of current going political elements. You should be cool with it. I promise, doing it a cool way. So the first thing I'd like to do is expand the idea of political. Commonly, we call things political when we're annoyed or when they're directly linked to our governments. Property tax, political, right? In Community's 5th season, they go through what I would expect is everyone's common idea of the political. Community Season 5, the once study group, now Greendale Improvement Coalition? I don't know what they're called. Something funny. I'm sure it's, I don't know. Annie and Hickey go through the seedy underbelly of the community college. The people that make things tick. There's janitors, there's the maintenance people, there's the lady in charge of parking structures. It's the one with Nathan Fillion in it, so it's kind of fantastic. But they're playing at another kind of corruption and mafioso trope from television, because Community is all about breaking down different homages to television and commenting on them. Annie, in her need to get a bulletin board put up in the cafeteria, has to go through the janitors union, who then needs a favor from the IT department, who needs a favor from someone else, and in the process corrupts her, doing more and more favors for more and more people in order for her to put up a bulletin board. And in the end of the episode, Hickey puts up the bulletin board himself with 2 screws and a bulletin board. The normal takeaway from this is bureaucracy and government itself is evil and corrupting, and we should just do the thing if we can. And this is people's normal understanding of the political. People who are supposed to be doing their jobs, then asking favors from one another. Normally, people's idea of politics is us getting shafted. There's a bunch of wind turbines I don't want blocking the view. They're putting in a new skyscraper. There's a new giant hotel blocking our view of the coast. Oh, fun. In my town, Cedar Rapids, after there was a historic 2008 flood that took out a lot of people's homes right ahead of the national housing crisis, our dikes failed because the water got higher than the deck because it was a once-in-a-lifetime historical flood. A bunch of people in town that don't live in the flood area were very angry about their tax dollars being spent to rebuild dikes to protect the city. And of course there's roundabouts. Government loves putting roundabouts places and no one likes them. No one likes roundabouts. If you say you like roundabouts, I don't believe you. But of course, the needle drops for me whenever I hear someone saying they're going to avoid political topics or they're going to do something apolitically. The big problem for me is that everything is political. There's that old adage that if something isn't strictly political, then they are politically backing the status quo. But the other part of that is everything happens because of politics. It's how we've organized our society. Politics is how we get things done, work together, and organize. You cannot name something that is absent of politics. This is particularly true for media, but you know, I'm such a brain goblin that my friends like ham sandwich. I'm like wheat subsidies, pork subsidies, veganism, all very highly politically charged topics that come into how much your sandwich is, where it's shipped from, where we buy the meat and wheat, where it's processed, how it gets to in the store, what store you go to. It's all extremely political. It is our lives. Politics is intertwined with the very being of a society. Politics is what is available to us all the time. From roads, which of course if you think about it, you're like, yeah, the roads are political. We politically got it there, but it helps everyone, so it's like normal political. It is invisible to the field. If someone says, I like roads, you can, oh yeah, I love roads. But then there's people trying to privatize roads. So politics is everything from the real small aspects of how we get food to people and who pays for roads and how much you pay for taxes, to how we deal or don't deal with a crisis or a situation. And there are a lot of things that we can choose not to deal with, and that isn't a bad answer. So in my community episode that I talked about earlier, that episode is about politics, but the idea of corruption and bureaucracy in politics, when in reality, every episode of Community is about politics, because every episode of Community is about the interplay of this group, how they decide to do things, how they work together or don't work together, how they are able to help one another come up with a way past the obstacle for the week. The A story and the B story, and the interplay between the two, is how the groups affect one another, and how people affect one another in their thought process, in their suggestion, in their help, is politics. Though not the way you're thinking, like there's gonna be a bunch of people nickel and diming me about these stupid definitions. And no, in order to understand politics as it exists and as it affects us in our lives, we have to understand that it affects our lives, that we are constantly intertwined with it. Everything you do, every decision you make, every relationship doesn't necessarily feel political because we have alienated our ideas of politics from what we do normally, when what you do normally is perfectly fine politics in itself. The difference is that it's politics that work, or that you immediately see work or not work. Like, you're not a failure, but I know you don't always get your way. That's fine. And now I'd like to put out there that it's not your fault that you are alienated from the politics that affect your life, because that is how the system is designed to be. It's designed to be big and obscure and perplexing so that you don't question it, so you don't engage with it, so you don't think this is how we can change things, or this change should be made, it separates you from solutions. Where if you and your roommate, say, don't like the color of a toaster, you guys can deal with that. You can find solutions and then understand why those solutions happen. I'm going to put forward that you don't hate politics. You hate being annoyed. You hate not being able to work with one another. You hate not having answers. You hate it when things are bad and you can't do anything about it, or when people need help. No one likes to see a homeless person on the street. Homeless people don't like being homeless and on the street. And you don't like it because there's nothing you can do about it that doesn't just strictly annoy you. You can give them money, and you can like giving them money, or you can not give them money. And both are technically fine, but neither of them fixes the problem of the homeless person. And some people are so divorced from that reality that they don't even see it as a problem. Because maybe they like it, maybe they choose to, maybe it's just they're living the life out there. But you don't know because you're divorced from it, and you're divorced from the process of what makes that thing happen. So that leaves influences to come in and tell you what happened that fits their narrative, and their narrative is probably whatever makes you feel the most comfortable and whatever attracts you to it the most, which is fine. You've got to live your life. You've got to deal with your friends. You have your own problems to deal with, and it's completely fine and understandable because that's how we've designed politics and how we solve problems to work. It's a big club that actually solves problems, or doesn't solve them, and you ain't in it, which means they ignored the problem, so it's still there. And now it falls down to you, and you are allowed to be annoyed because it's annoying. Again, I don't know who's making all these roundabouts. Who makes that decision? It is so. What makes sense in this situation? We like the solution at the end of community. We like Hickey ignoring everyone, walking up to the cafeteria wall, holding up a billboard and putting in 2 screws to hold it on so that people can get messages about carpooling around. It's nice. It's sweet. It's an easy, elegant solution that cuts out all the bureaucracy. And we really like it when those solutions happen. People love stories about GoFundMes, where someone with or without health insurance have a lot of debt and have a really tragic story, and they reach out and people give money and solve that person's problems. We love Mr. Beast, who goes through YouTube and gives people money, gives people Ferraris. It makes a lot of people happy and changes their lives in huge substantial ways and makes things easier and keeps things going, and has nothing to do with the awful, terrible bureaucracy of government that annoys us so much. It's easy. You give people money, their lives are better. You love to see it. Problems are not easy. Problems are hard. Like, they keep coming up. For example, you can choose routes to drive to places where you don't hit the roundabouts. But the roundabouts still exist, and you might still, when driving, happen to go through one. Or construction shuts down roads, so you have to go through the new roundabout, and you have to figure out what's it doing. And you have to be like, wait, that guy got here after me and sped through. Do I have to wait for him? Am I gonna get hit by this truck that did not even slow down and jumped the curb on the roundabout? This is horrifying. Who came up with this system? You can't do anything about a roundabout without a sledgehammer and really hoping the cops don't catch you. Sometimes an outrage item fades away. Very few people in Cedar Rapids are angry about a tax they paid 5 years ago or 10 years ago to pay for dikes that are currently keeping people safe and, let's face it, are pretty neat. Like, it's cool moving land. I don't know. Building things is always cool, unless it's a roundabout. So in my home of Michigan, it's not the windiest place. There's lots of trees, and we don't necessarily notice how windy it gets because, you know, it's not like Iowa where there's a lot of flat plain through. We have the lake, we have dunes that block winds, and then we have farmland and forests. That's Michigan. That's all of Michigan. But then there's a lot of wind turbines that have been put up. Like there's a whole batch of, I think more than 60 of these wind turbines that got put all over the county, and there were a lot of residents that super hated it because it changes their view. Wind turbines actually do make a noise, which is weird, that you can hear from like a couple miles around. And strictly speaking, the people that live there don't profit from the electricity that's made. It doesn't like go to them. It doesn't make things cheaper. As far as I know, it's put up by a private company. And at the time, my parents were mad, and there were a lot of people that super didn't want this to happen. But there were a lot of people that did just live in the city and didn't mind if there were some wind turbines out in the country. Funding that goes along with any kind of projects, and of course, jobs made of people that need to keep up on maintenance on these wind turbines and check on them and all that stuff. So when I heard about it, people were real grouchy about it. But no one's real grouchy about it anymore. At least, I'm sure they'll tell you if they are. But overall, people are fine with it. Like, the wind turbines make a noise, but it's not more than traffic or a fridge or any other background noise that happens when people happen to exist in an area. Wind turbines are actually really neat to watch in the distance. They don't make an area less interesting. They add more like landmarks to an area. So people just got used to the wind turbines. It's fine. It didn't ruin anyone's life. It doesn't make anyone's life less peaceful. The wind turbines are good. And the argument that it wasn't windy enough for them most of the time, people still point out like, I don't see that one turning, but they seem to be working pretty well. They seem to be turning by the wind. Who knew? 100 feet above the ground, wind happened, despite that you can't feel it in the tree. Yeah, the wind turbines aren't hurting anyone. On top of that, no one would benefit from the wind turbines being torn down or taken apart or like blown up, I guess. There's no direct action, no putting up the bulletin board for the problem of wind turbines. But what if something does affect someone? What if everybody wanted some major change, but the bureaucracy did stand in the way? I'm going to jump into the current politics, but please relax. We are not commenting on it or saying one way or another. We're going to do a thought experiment. Alright? On thought. People don't like the police shooting people. There are some people that are okay with the police shooting people. On an individual level, you can say, oh man, I wish the police hadn't shot that person and it was a mistake. But let's not... It's understandable to still see needs in the community that are met by police. I understand people thinking that. But let's say there's a town where people don't think that, okay? Okay. If everyone in the town agreed that they do not like the police as they currently are, maybe they want several different jobs of police to happen. So they want like road boys, and then they want someone to set up traffic cones, and then they want somebody to remind people to obey the stop signs, and they want somebody to make sure that those teenagers don't intimidate any grandparents, and they want to make sure that people aren't smashing up the statues in the park. Okay, we can have those people. The community can set out all of these specific things, and if they're all in agreement that, okay, we want cops, they're not going to have guns, they're not going to give tickets for speeding, and they're not going to tailgate your car for a mile until you speed up and then pull you over. Everyone decides that we don't want the cops to do those things. The entire town is in unison. There's a protest and everyone came. Can they change the police? Well, in most cities, that can't happen, even if everyone wants it. Every civilian wants to change how the police works. It won't happen because there's a city charter that says that we have police, this is what they do, and this is how much funding they get. A lot of city charters can't be changed. They're like constitutions. So there has to be a whole ordeal. If it happens during the wrong time of year, then you won't be able to change the police tomorrow. Maybe if everyone agrees, it can get on a ballot in a year, and everyone can then go ahead and vote away the police and make the kind of police that they all want. But there's other steps. Several cities have charter committees. We first brought to a charter committee, to listen to their suggestions on what should be changed in the city charter. And then, after they get the suggestion, it can be brought to a vote. The city charter is appointed by a random judge, and this can be decided at the state level. The state level can say a judge in each county has to then take volunteers to make a charter committee so that the city cannot change their charters without going to the charter committee, and then it can be brought to a ballot where then things can change. If everyone agrees that they want to change the police, then possibly it can't happen for years where we'll be tied up. And if it's a dynamic system where, they decide, no, we do want the police to write some tickets, not speeding tickets, but they want to do this other thing, then the organization of power is not such that that could be done right away or immediately or even within the next 4 or 5 years. You might have to do a recall election. You might have to put in a new and different mayor. In that time, people lose cohesion and get bored and frustrated and start to hate politics some more because it is made to be slow so that you lose focus because your life has some pressing issues, bro. Really? Doesn't the thought of if you and literally everyone you know and mattered to wanted to make a change and couldn't, doesn't that piss you off? Doesn't that make you mad? Shouldn't our system change just for the reason that if everyone wanted something, it happened? For most American cities, in order for them to change the police, it might just be easier to literally dissolve their town, have everyone decide on their own new form of government, stop paying taxes to the old government, design their own police and workforce and get themselves a new name and just make a new town from scratch would be easier and perhaps faster than trying to reform the old city charter to make it happen the way you want it to happen. There can be a lot done if people agreed and worked together. For example, it would be easy to get rid of the police if the police are like, yeah, this job blows. None of us want to be police. Abandon the buildings, quit, no one be a cop, no one hire new cops, and we will go into this new system of policing where there are road boys and there are social workers, community-based, answers to the community, and ignores the old structures of power where it's made so that people don't have to deal with it, but not only don't deal with it, but don't have a say in it. And that's annoying. It's made to annoy the majority of the people until only the psychopaths want to get involved. It's nothing like your personal relationship with your neighbor, where you can loan each other meat. If you have extra venison, you can give them venison. Cedar Rapids, Iowa was hit by hurricane winds that knocked out power for most residents from 10 to 14 days. And they did not get national help. And they barely got food, and most people got by helping their neighbors. My street that was blocked off by roads was unblocked by people with their personal chainsaws. Everyone who had a gas-powered generator got it out and let their neighbors use it in order to keep people's food better. That wasn't the government coming in and giving people generators so that their food doesn't spoil. That was neighbors. That was a personal thing, and we didn't see that as politics. We saw that as helping a neighbor. And sure, not everyone can help their neighbor. Not everyone is a contractor and happens to have access to a gas-powered generator. But people have extra food, people had canned food, people could give other people rides or had access to radios and information. We talked to each other about what we knew to find out the best way to help one another, and we made sure that people would be helped. And it was politics, but it was good because it was interpersonal and we could see the difference that we're making in someone else's life. And that can be politics. That can be how we run politics everywhere. The best way to escape ideology, the best way to escape these politics that are annoying and weigh you down and just make it so that you hate everything and annoyed and you feel like nothing can be fixed, is to help your neighbor, is to help the people in your lives, your friends, your family, to improve those interpersonal connections. That is the real escape. The escape from politics is our interpersonal politics. Seeing how things are done and can be made better. That we always did, and possibly you were already doing, and you probably are already doing. Making someone's life better or easier. Entertaining someone. Being friends. Sharing your internet. Letting people know about news. Giving them video games. Giving them your time watching TV together is all wonderful and good. Make sure to subscribe, and if you want to support me and help me do this, I have a Patreon. Let's support one another.